No, I mustn't care that.
What did I say, you two?
Yeah, I don't want you.
I don't know whether to make some sense.
I just want to say a few words about Bhopal. I don't know how much any of you know about it. You know, some of you were very young when it happened or weren't even born. But on the night of December the 2nd, 1984, a noxious gas of methyl isocyanate was allowed to escape into the environment around in Bhopal. And I say allowed because I think Union Carbide have been shown that it was their corporate greed and their corporate neglect that allowed this gas to escape into the environment. Because there were six separate ways that the gas could have been stopped from getting into the environment, but over time they've been allowed to fail. And it was definitely their neglect that allowed this to happen. Because what had happened is that the plant had been built in the 1970s when Union Carbide thought that there was a strong possibility they would make a lot of money out of Indian farmers selling them pesticides and chemicals, and that didn't really come to fruition. So slowly they wound the plant down and ceased production in about 1980. But they did leave on the site though about 60 tons of this gas. But it was their inability to manage the site and to actually remove it and effectively maintain the well-being of the local population that led to this disaster in 1984. So we know 25,000 people have probably died and 120,000 people are still suffering the ill effects from that night. Because not only was the gas allowed to escape, but the poisons have been left in the ground and they've leached into the water, and it's been shown that these chemicals cause brain damage, cancers and birth defects. So 30 years later we know 25,000 people dead and 120,000 people still suffering from ailments. Now Union Carbide, they've shut down and they were bought out by a company called Dow Chemicals. Now Dow, very big, powerful corporation, but they still refuse to clean up the site. They refuse to provide safe drinking water for the local population, and they refuse even information on what the gases contained to allow doctors to treat the victims and the survivors. So our idea tonight was to try and just gather some people to think about the victims in Bhopal and the survivors, and also try and draw some parallels between the situation, because this is something that could happen again in any city in any part of the world, and it could happen in Bristol.
It could have happened in Avonmouth because we've got exactly the same plant. It was down the road 3 miles away, built by Union Carbide.
So thank you for listening to me, and perhaps at the end we could just have a minute's silence to remember the victims of the Bhopal disaster, but I'll pass on to whoever's going to carry on. Thank you very much.
Alright, hi, I'm Tash from, I'm part of the Avon Coalition Against Big Biofuels. You've probably heard of us through the work of people down here in Avonmouth. We're a broad coalition, so I can't really represent it fully because lots of people have different ways of working and different tactics and all that kind of thing. So we set up a year ago when we heard about the big biomass plant by Helios, and through various forms of lobbying and direct action we've seemed to have stopped them so far, but they're saying that they can't go ahead with building it because they don't have the right investment at the moment. It could be the fact that people down in Avonmouth have done so much work in the different types of actions they've been doing. Some people scaled the fences of where it might be, where it would be built, and to show the vulnerability of people's health, they were semi-naked, and on the back of them it said no biomass, or no biomess actually. And then a little bit before that, there was another biofuel plant called WB4, and that is a totally other thing, which would be importing another kind of biofuel, which is grown, the Jubparata oil, which would be stealing land off communities and chopping them down to then grow palm oil and jatropha as well, and then that would be imported here to Avonmouth and then burnt and causing loads of pollution for the local people and for the rest of the southwest as well. The opposition to that was incredibly amazing, but unfortunately Eric Pickles went ahead with it and said they could do it, but still that company can't find investment. And I think that the work of the Avon Coalition Against Big Biofuels, which includes the local people of the Avon Dust Forum, Bristol Rising Tide, I think Friends of the Earth are part of it as well, are showing that if investors went ahead with this kind of thing, that it would look bad for them. So I think every type of action that people are taking under the coalition is helping to make this happen. I'm sure you'll hear more about the newer plans that we've got the council to reject, which was incredible. That was like last month. It just shows how communities who work together stop these big things happening. And another thing that the coalition want to do is to inspire action in all sorts of different ways. Thanks.
Thanks, Tash.
Oh God.
Well, as you know, yeah, we did stop the next terror plan through hard work. It's the Avon Coalition, and we all know now that it's going up for appeal. Okay? So there probably is a strong likelihood that Pickles will endorse it if he gets it through quick enough. So we have to look to the future. Well, the future is not bright and it's not orange, but every way we look at it, Avonmouth is going to be turning into the recycling hub of the southwest. Whether we like it or whether we don't, it's going to happen. The announcement today of the pipe dream of the new junction on the M49 was always on the cards, because the port intends to build a deep water terminal, which in their own scoping document says there'll be 3,000 lorry movements in a day, a 24-hour period. Great. It's going to be diverted out of the centre of Avonmouth. I've no arguments with that. I've no arguments with a container berth being built. What does concern me is what else they plan to put in around the container berth. We know that Helios want to build their plant, and as Tasha said at this moment, they can't raise the finance. That's not to say they won't raise the finance in the future. There are currently 6 incinerators planned for Avonmouth, including New Earth Solutions incinerator. It's also a well-known fact that London waste is coming out of London and will almost certainly be coming to Bristol. It's said that it can only travel 100 miles, so it'll have a transfer station just outside of the motorway, and it will then be brought down to Bristol. So we do have challenging times ahead. We've seen the politicians down here. Whatever you look at it, the greatest one I think was the Secretary of the Environment, because she was stood there and she could have said to Mr. Withers that day that she wanted full-time air quality monitoring put in. It didn't get said. What got said was a petition, and that's all we seem to get down here are petitions. Another interesting factor is the M49 new junction. Am I asked to believe that my 2 councillors didn't know that was on the cards? Am I asked to believe that the neighbourhood forum never knew that was on the cards? Are we that stupid? Because it appears we're being treated like idiots, whether we like it or not. People know my opinion of that Quango. I don't care what people's opinion of me is. If I want to win personality complexes or contests, I'd go to Butlins. I'm going to fight, nail in tooth, to stop everything that they want to bring here. We may not succeed, but we will be sending a loud and clear message. I'm not going to be sitting down waiting for them to wipe me out or my great nieces out. Many people down here already suffer with serious health problems. That will continue. Be under no illusion that a Bhopal can't happen in Avonmouth, because it can. And it did, nearly, when Albright and Wilson went up. We were very lucky then. Very, very lucky. Because that toxic cloud blew out over the estuary. That's not make-believe, that's fact.
And before that, the petrol tankers on St Andrews Road went up. And that caused a big uproar in Avonmouth. And that was in the 1950s.
Why should the community of Avonmouth, Sharhampton and Lawrence Weston have second best?
Year.
Why should we have second best? Why can our officials not represent our best interest? Tim Lehman did for Lawrence Weston. Tim Lehman chased those two councillors for a fortnight, asking them to call in a decision. And then at the forum, I was actually called a liar. And I was told to basically shut up, nobody wanted to hear it. Well, that's the fact. That is the fact. Wayne Harvey did not call that decision in. It was through the hard work of the people of Avonmouth and the Avon Coalition that stopped that incinerator. Charlotte Leslie has written to Mike Andrews stating she was in favour of it.
She's in favour too of you paying for a doctor to be, if you want to see a doctor, you should be paying to see that doctor. What a disgrace in the National Health Service that we have fought for all over these years, and it's being taken away from us.
People need to look at Charlotte Leslie's voting programme.
Year.
How she votes. She voted for a food bank.
Disgraceful.
And every time she comes into this village, she leads everyone up the garden path with her electioneering photo shoots. That Environment Secretary could have said there and then, permanent air quality monitoring in Avonmouth. She did not. She gave no promises. No more than Charlotte Leslie's given a promise. We're being given nothing but political rhetoric and empty promises. And it's time.
You cancer, but nevertheless, they'll give you a Christmas tree as well to go with it. That's the light of the day we got down here.
And that's the reality of where we are. So our destiny lies in our hands.
Year.
We either fight or we just lay over and have our tummies rubbed and get the scraps off the table.
Year.
But me, for one, I'm fighting.
That's right.
Anyone else want to say anything?
All I got to say about the politicians, I always remember when they put the gypsies down there in Avonmouth, right down the bottom of St Andrews Road, green. The water was green. It was the most disgusting place you could ever, right next door to Phil Black. And they put the gypsies, human beings, kids running around, and the washing was on that line. Now, if politicians can do that to gypsies, what can they do to the human beings in this wonderful world of ours? And people, when you say Avonmouth, Sharhampton, Lawrence Weston, no, they don't want to come down here because it's too far. They don't want to come down here because they don't want to know the truth. How do you, Steve?
I mean, you got told those toilets were condemned. That's what we said, you couldn't have toilets in Avonmouth, they've been condemned. So how come they got a power supply to that tree? Out of the toilets. You're being fed bullshit. All the time and time again.
So if you want to go to the toilet, go round the back there to the old vicarage, and you can go behind there, and that's free of charge. Go down Western, you'll be charged a 2 and 6, I imagine, or a free bob.
6 months ago at the Avonmouth Community Forum, they turned around and said that they would get in touch with the bus company to get some toilets paid for. We went to the last meeting, they said, oh, we haven't got round to it yet. 3 months to make a phone call. That was another 3 months ago. They don't give a toss. Yeah, you might get a twinkly tree, you get COPD to go with it. Wayne Harvey stood up in that meeting over there and lied to you all. He said that he called in the planning meeting. I stood up at council, in front of the whole council, and Wayne was called out for being a liar.
That's right.
Because Tim Lehman was lobbying him for 2 weeks, and Wayne, and they lied to your face.
Wayne Harvey, Sue Turner, promised that the apprentices would restore that park. How do I know that? Because I was at the meeting with the Chief Executive Officer of the Port Company as well. Lisa, would you like to speak about what you got told about the park?
They're taking it away.
What?
Yeah, they're going to take the park away.
Which part?
There's a nice little
Richmond
plan
Terrace
for
park.
houses
This
down there.
part.
What's down the bottom?
Because they're not prepared to replace any of the equipment down there. As it's falling apart, it'll just get taken away.
Wayne Harvey and Sue Turner told me that the apprentices would restore that park. They told me categorically they would restore that park and relink with the community. She chased them, once we come off the streets, she chased them for 2-3 months before she got told they were going to do nothing. Also, I posted on the forums about the port office being downsized. Would you like to tell them who told you that, Lisa?
One of the council officers.
One from the neighbourhood forum
Yeah.
told her that the port company are going to downsize. The very forum that we go to that we're expected to trust. Now, is it not strange? They want to do away with the park and the Bristol Port Company are downsizing.
Calbrazian provides a planning permission under delegated powers, no doubt.
There's not a lot more I can say. It's there. It stares you in the face. It stares you in the face. You are not being told the truth. You are being fed lie after lie. I sat there and shook the man's hand, the CEO of the port company. And I was offered a cup of tea and biscuits, which I declined. The promise was made in front of Wayne Harvey that they would refurbish that park. The apprentices would refurbish it.
Steve and I have just dropped in some written questions to Councillor Harvey because he's refused to answer emails, tweets, any other form of communication for the last month or so. So we'll put them up on the forums tonight. What you need to do is ask your councillor why he's not answering those questions.
What were the questions?
There's a few of them. There's a list of them, mainly around his salary from the port as a non-executive director aside from Bristol City Council. He claimed that he donated that to charity. We contacted the charity. Charity will neither confirm or deny, so we've asked Wayne to confirm that in writing, that he's donated that money, because that was in the same meeting that he also turned around and told us that he intervened in the planning meeting, which turned out to be a blatant lie.
We can, if it is a registered charity with the Charities Commission, we can actually request that information as an FOI from the Charities Commission itself. Okay?
Thank you for that
They have to
information.
register their books with the Commission.
Thank you for that information.
Okay, I'm legally qualified.
Well, the rest of the questions will be up on the forum tonight. Have a look and wonder why your councillor refuses to answer.
On a closing note, we obviously need to get stuff together for the 2nd of January. The best scenario is Parliament gets dissolved before Pickles gets it on his table. That was the hope when we left the planning meeting, but clearly it's full steam ahead. Another interesting factor is the company that wanted to build one of these biomass incinerators in Plymouth had the full support of nobody, and their own council withdrew it off the table. Well, they withdrew it off the table, but the council was refusing it. We have Mr. Calabrese rubber stamping decisions down here like it's confetti. You know, be under no illusion that that incinerator comes so with those stock ash piles, right just down at the end of Richmond Terrace. Don't think they're not coming, because that dust will be blowing everywhere. We are going back to the bad old days. Whether we like it or not, we're being pushed back to the dark ages. And we either stand up and fight, or we allow them to do
with the
it.
rest of it. And the only people that was down here in St Andrews Road was Pete Freens, and they were the biscuit factory, and they had to move out of Avonmouth because of the smelting works, Phil Black, and all the rest of the garbage that came along.
We are going down the road to oblivion.
But we don't have
If we
to.
don't monitor things, if our councillors don't tell us the truth, who can we trust?
Each other.
Ghostbusters.
I thank you all for coming, and maybe have that minute
What else,
silence
Steve?
now for those perfect Bhopal.
One and brothers and sisters outside this
Thank you
outside
for
our
everybody for
wonderful
coming.
area.
Nice to see you.
Does anybody else want to say anything?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If your councillor isn't here, then how come one of you guys aren't the councillor? Or councillors?
Well, that you'd have to ask our esteemed councillors who are over there planning their Christmas event.
If they're not good enough, then how come you guys aren't?
Well, we're not. I can't answer that for you. They're in there with a selection of a population of Avonmouth who claim to represent Avonmouth.
All right.
So does that tree. But there was no consultation. There were many people here that were opposed to it because of no consultation.
So he just asked Steve, can we go over and meet him?
We were just
But we
asked politely to leave.
We were just asked politely to leave.
because we went in to present our questions.
Our community police officer might be able to take us over.
So can we have our
Let's
minute
do our minute
silence?
silence then.
Can we have our minute silence, please?
Can I, just before we have that minute silence, can I just say, just as a, just as a message for the future, really, that we should not only remember the dead, but we should need to fight for the living and demand justice. So we'll have 1 minute silence for everybody. That's all. Thank you.
You want me to stop?